by reading the title of this, you can already guess why I've got a human grumpy cat look on my face. Well, I'm about to show you exactly why. Did you get all that? I'm glad you did. Okay. Let's be clear on a few things. I'm not saying for one iota of a second that Megan Fox should not play a reinterpretation of a role, but the big problem is Indiana Jones has been made synonymous by Harrison Ford the same way he made his Han Solo role in the Star Wars universe synonymous, because only he could play that character. It's in a similar vein. At this point in time, there is only one guy that is the true Iron Man, and that is Robert Downey Jr. To a lot of people who love Batman, there's only two actors that have played Bats that people think they're the true Batmen, or Batman even. One being the 60s TV favourite Adam West, and the 1989 portrayal done by Michael Keaton. And of course, you then get into Spider-Man, and it's kind of split three ways. You get people that think Tobey Maguire is the ideal one. Some will say Andrew Garfield. It's a little early to say with Tom Holland, but his performance in Civil War, not bad. But I'm just going to get down to brass tacks a second. Megan Fox, in my opinion only, is not talented enough to fill the legendary shoes of Harrison Ford. Megan has even said herself in interviews she's not a good actress. She just tries to find roles that play to her strengths. Megan is a very gorgeous and very pleasant woman facially to look at, but she's not that good of an actress. I mean, in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2014, she actually tried, so I'll give her props for that, but you see her in things like Transformers, and you're thinking, when is this trip going to end? And I'll probably get some flack for saying this, but when is this trend going to end where we see these iconic roles, made so iconic by, the actors' performances, they have to get replaced by, female actors just to pander to a demographic? I mean, wouldn't it actually be better served to actually create an original character with an original premise and storyline that will actually make female audiences, I'll try that again, female audiences go, this character is very empowering, I like this, this is actually inspiring me. There will be some arguments saying, but that role's already pre-established. It's like, this is also another big thing, another big problem in the comics where they're recast in the comic series. They're changing the Hulk's character, whereas everyone knows it's Bruce Banner, and they're changing it to this. I forget his name, so if you do know the name, comment section below and let me know. But they're changing it to like a character who's like early to mid-20s scientist. It's one thing if you get a new actor or a new actress replacing someone in a role. I mean, it's been done enough with James Bond, and as I just mentioned, it's been done with Batman. With the Hulk, I've lost count. I still cite Bill Bixby as the very best one that's been ever done, because Bix, he is the quintessential Bruce Banner. End of. But it's when they say, oh, we'll get Falcon to be Captain America. It's like, no! He's the Falcon! It's the same way, evidently, for, I think, Spider-Man 4, from what Random DCE showed me a video of the other day, they wanted to bring Felicia Hardy in, but make her as the Vultress, the daughter of the Vulture. And I'm like, why? She's the Black Cat! Don't change things that make sense. I can understand if it was a son or a daughter taking over, in akin to what they did with Batman Beyond, where Terry McGinnis took the mantle and put, the cowl on, taking over from where Bruce had retired. Because by that point in the series, Bruce is like mid to late 70s, and his days of scrambling the rooftops of Gotham is kind of past him. Not saying that to be nasty, it's just plain fact. At that age, he's kind of past it. It makes sense when you're passing, the baton to another generation that is able to go the miles and go the distance to be able to carry on that mantle. But to be able to have Harrison Ford, renowned, recognized, marvelous, world-class actor, and you're going to replace him for a reboot with someone who has admitted herself she's not that great an actress, just to, pander to a demographic. Now, some people might take exception with that. Hey, that's fine. I respect other people's opinions. I might not agree, but I respect them. But to suggest, another scenario where, we've got to change this role, from male to female because we want to make him parent. Why don't you make an original character? It'd be like, for example, if they took Michael Knight of Knight Rider and said, we're going to reboot Knight Rider and she's going to be Michaela Knight. You think, what? You see, this is why the Ghostbusters reboot is going to be doomed to failure. And, Mr. Feige is citing that, the internet is full of unscrupulous people. The internet has a dark spot where geeks are rather unscrupulous. I know exactly what he said in the article. I'm just rewording a few things because I don't play like that on this channel. Where he says people are making multiple YouTube accounts just to dislike the trailer. Here's a thing. Even casual movie fans looked at the Ghostbusters reboot trailer and like, you serious? And here's the thing. And I'm going to look directly into the camera just to say this. If the Ghostbusters reboot had been an all-male cast with the same mannerisms, the same script, and the same direction, I would have found it equally as displeasing. Because changing the sexes of the characters, genders, whichever your interpretation, that's up to you. Changing it does not make it better. If the script is awful, it doesn't matter what side or what gender of the species it is. Awful script will lead to awful movie. Now, if they had come along and given a decent script for the Ghostbusters reboot, let's just say, for the sake of discussion, Ivan Reitman is still on board, but is serving in an advisory capacity because a new generation should, have a fresh look at it. Not a problem with that. But what if you had someone like David Koepp, who wrote the screenplay for Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and the first Spider-Man movie, and you had let's say for the sake of the sake of discussion, you had Brett Ratner, who's much more of a comedic director, coming in to do Ghostbusters, and actually go with something that's not copy and paste from the original movie. Because what you got to understand with Ghostbusters is it's a beloved and treasured franchise that has stood the test of time for the last 32 years. I have to correct the trailer on something. It said 30 years ago, Four Friends Saved New York. Yeah, that would be true if the movie was out in 1986. I realize I'm splitting hairs with this, but people will point these little facts out on the internet. I've had points, facts pointed out to me. I've been corrected, so I'm not immune to this. So it's just a small thing. It's just a small thing, man. I don't know. The premise that that, like I say, they're going with for this reboot is it's just almost page for page of what they did with the original. The thing is, though, the visual and special effects that they did for the 1984 cult classic is those visual and special effects still hold up after 32 years. Whereas what they're going with for the reboot, it just looks cheap, tacky, and nasty. And I'm not even going to get into the stereotypes because a lot of other people have already pointed that out. I'm not going there with that because, it's just not something that we do. Or I do, should I say. And getting back to Indiana Jones, I think if they're going to be faithful to an indie reboot, first and foremost, leave it 10 to 15 years. Just leave it 10 to 15 years because I will give Batman Begins a lone exception because Batman and Robin was that awful. As a superhero, somewhat serious comic book movie, it fails. As a comedy, it succeeds. You can quote Random DCE on that. That's the lone exception. That is when, there was the whole renaissance of comic book movies coming back to the big screen, where people are actually taking it seriously a little bit more. But with indie, because, that role, and as I've said earlier, because that role is so, of Harrison Ford is so ingrained in people's minds of what Indiana Jones is and should be, you need to leave it a while. Let things settle. I mean, some would say, reboot it if the last movie was bad. With Kingdom of Crystal Skulls, you might be right, based upon what I heard, because I heard that movie didn't do as well as it should have done, but that's their words, not mine. I think if they're going to do a reboot of Indiana Jones, keep Indy as a male character, simply because that's being faithful to the source material of what we have seen throughout the years. Just because you have an actress or a studio that says, oh, here's a smart idea, let's just instantly change it to female and that, they'll make it better. No. You've already got a female Indiana Jones. Her name is Lara Croft. We don't need another pandering, on a pre-established franchise, again, just to pander to a demographic that, really, do you want a female Indiana Jones when you've already got Lara Croft? I mean, even when they were making the first Tomb Raider game, you can even check this out on the extra features of, of the first Tomb Raider movie. An Egyptian Tomb Raider. They saw it was a guy, and it's like, this is too much like Indiana Jones. Let's just change it to female. Now, there are similarities between Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider, but there are enough differences with Lara Croft and Indy to kind of set themselves apart. And I think with Indy, it does deal a lot more with the fantasy, whereas what I noticed, and this is just my perception of what I witnessed with the two Tomb Raider movies that Angelina Jolie was in, it was a little bit more based on realism, because there was just a whole thing in the early 2000s says, oh no, we got to do everything in realism, which, by the way, some 16 years later, we're kind of getting sick of the whole realism thing. We'd actually like it to go back to somewhat more of a fantasy, escapist mentality, but that's me. You know, your mileage may vary on that. I don't know. I mean, it'd be like... I don't know, they come on and say, oh, we need to make a female Superman, but you've got Supergirl. Oh, we need to make a female Batman, but you've got Batgirl. We need a female Hulk. You've got She-Hulk. I don't know. I know this is very long-winded, and I'm just getting a whole bunch of stuff out of my system, but the world does not need a female Indiana Jones when we've already got Tomb Raider. You know, and this whole trend that Hollywood thinks they need to repackage and restructure something just to cater to a certain demographic, when truthfully, do they actually want it? I can't speak for them, but I can honestly say, looking at it from my perspective, it's not only unnecessary to do something like that, it's completely unmerited and asinine. But don't take my word for it, you know, everyone's got a different opinion, and I welcome that. But yeah, Indiana Fox, and that sounds questionable on the surface of it. Comment section, get a conversation going. Let me know what you think about a potential or an unwanted potential of Megan Fox playing Indiana Jones. I've said my piece. Get a conversation going. Let me know what you think. Until then, good night from the night.